So just for the sake of time, I want to go ahead and just jump to the discussion. I know a lot of you need to catch transport, so let's look at the discussion. So in the discussion, there's several pieces of information you should find. One is, how do you interpret the results? What lessons did they learn from what they have seen? And why do they think they saw some of the things that they saw? Another thing that they should present are the limitations. I will tell you right now, no study is perfect. Not any study in the world is perfect. And so what were the limitations, and how does that affect the interpretation of results? They should talk about ways forward, what are their recommendations, and including if more research needs to be done, what is that research they think needs to be done? And then finally, an overall summary, and I forget who said the conclusion, but a conclusion is often included in the discussion. Sometimes it might be on its own. So for this study, they talked about in Kenya, like other places, there is an association between HIV and circumcision, that you should target young, sexually inactive men for campaigns, and that most circumcision happens by traditional healers, which can be dangerous. So those were their main points of discussion that they had. For the limitations, this was one of the things that I asked you to look at when you were thinking about reading the article, was the limitations. So did anyone identify the limitations that the authors put forth in the article? There were a lot of limitations here, and again, for the sake of time, it was a cross-sectional study. There was no physical examination. We don't know why they had a circumcision. Was it medical? Was it part of a ritual? We asked them to self-report sexual behavior, and we talked a little bit with Vincent's question about the limitations of self-report. All next week we're going to talk about limitations of studies. So what is a bias of self-report data? And then small sample sizes, particularly in some subgroups. So they weren't able to report with a lot of confidence HIV prevalence in circumcision in different small groups of people. And then finally, every study should come with recommendations, and their recommendations are to expand circumcision efforts. They identified specific areas to target in future campaigns. They advocate for safer surgical practices. Paterne, this is what you talked about before. To work with leaders of the luau community, because there was a higher rate of non-circumcision in that group. To work on people accepting circumcision, to talk about HIV prevention messages in addition to circumcision, and to target younger men. So make sure young men are getting circumcised before they are infected.